Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Today on Observe Day, as we celebrate National Read a New Book Month, I am joined by an author whose work is as thrilling as it is thought-provoking. Guy Morris is a former 4500 technology leader turned multiple award-winning author of intelligent action thrillers, drawing from a remarkable life that has taken him from AI labs and billion-dollar boardrooms to shark dives and global adventures. Guy's novel weave real history, cutting-edge technology, and true events into page turners, often compared to the works of Dan Brown and Robert Ludlum. With three acclaimed thrillers, Swarm, The Last Ark, and The Curse of Cortez, Guy's mission is simple: to thrill, educate, and inspire. Guy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Wisdom. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. You've had an extraordinary career before becoming an author.
I guess I have. I never really thought of it that way. I was just trying to live a full life and trying to always accomplish something new, and I guess it all added up at the end.
Yeah. What finally pulled you toward writing fiction full time?
Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton wrote he wrote several amazing books, and he was very scientifically minded, similar to me. And instead of writing white papers about the risks of technology that would be read by other geeks, he wrote amazing fictional books that engaged the reader in the moral dilemmas of those choices that were being made on our behalf. And, some of his work was Jurassic Park, and he worked on timeline issues and other environmental issues and testing monkeys and animals in labs. And he had an amazing body of work where his books were not just entertaining. They had a moral theme to them. They had questions they wanted civilization to ask itself and to come up with answers on. And I think that inspired me, that after a lifetime of work, I had a number of experiences that had impacted me personally. And I felt there had to be a way for me to communicate that to others. Now, some people said, why not just write a memoir? Well, my life there might be things in my life that other people might find interesting, but that's not a big draw, right? There's not a big demand for that, unless you're a celebrity.
Yeah.
But if I could write a narrative that was fictional but felt real, I could engage people in the narrative. I could pull them into the realism, the reality of what we're facing right now, because so much of the books are researched and based on real facts. And so by blending that fact with fiction, I created a more compelling, a more authentic narrative. And that's what I wanted. I have two goals with my books. One is to write a story that is so fun to read, so engaging, so you just can't put it down. But once you do put it down, I want it to be so provocative that you don't stop thinking about it for weeks later.
Yeah.
And those are my goals.
Yeah.
And I've just released, you've mentioned some of my books, but I actually just released a new one in May called The Image. And I think in many ways it's my best yet. Not only because I think I'm getting better at learning how to tone the questions and the themes, but I think it's really dealing with the heart of some of the things that has most of the world highly anxious right now.
How did your personal journey from a difficult childhood to leading in tech shape the way you write characters and stories?
They have to be flawed. They have to be vulnerable. All of them have the shadows of the past that they're trying to outlive. There's a theme that runs through them that either says they don't want the past to define their future. And in some ways, there's another theme that's sometimes we have to die in order to learn why we live. And that comes from life. That comes from the experience of having to die to yourself, having to die to a dream, having to die to relationships, having to die to a part of your past that was holding you back. There's an essence there that the characters have to live that's based on that real life journey of homeless to respected,
Yeah,
and the lessons I had to learn about myself in order to make that journey.
yeah. For National Read a New Book Month, why do you believe thrillers is such a powerful entry point for readers? Like, if you want to start reading.
Say that question again. What?
Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that I'm assuming, right, that you believe that thrillers, because you write thrillers, uh, you believe thrillers are a powerful beginning point for readers, right, to start reading. Yeah. So I'm asking you, why do you believe thrillers as such?
Any
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
any book, every book that we read, we want it to impact us emotionally. A good book is going to also impact us intellectually and spiritually. You want a book that's it's a good place to start because it's where we live. It's where we live today.
Yeah,
It's what our life is like. And while a lot of people like fantasy books because they want to escape their reality. I find that thrillers help me deal with that reality.
oh,
They help me face it in a positive way. A really silly example is James Bond. Now, James Bond became famous during the Cold War.
yeah,
You're way too young to remember, but there was a time when we were genuinely worried on a day-to-day basis that a nuclear war would break out at any time. And we were terrified of the technologies that we were building and wondering whether we really had the maturity to actually manage those technologies. And that's still a problem that we have today, but we're dealing with it with artificial intelligence.
yeah,
But James Bond allowed us to go to the movies, have this really fun, exciting experience where we're on the edge of our seat the whole time,
yeah,
but walked away with this feeling like, okay, we know that Russia and America are still in a Cold War, but it's okay for today. We've won the battle for today. We've conquered that fear for today. And I think thrillers allow us to face real fear. Thrillers allow us to face real technologies, real situations, and give us characters that overcome those things. And so different than a fantasy novel that's trying to overcome a werewolf or a vampire or something completely untrue.
yeah,
We get to deal with our reality in I'm not going to say optimistic because all of the characters have to go through tough times, but
yeah,
they get to end well. They get to
yeah,
end on the positive side. They get to end with a sense of optimism and wit and character and camaraderie. And I think that's what I want the readers to feel, that rather than just living with the anxiety that we have today, be able to overcome it, to get past it, to see that it's dark, but there's always another day.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Your book, Swarm, is inspired by a real NSA program that escaped into the wild, right? Can you walk us through the moment you learned this story and decided to write it?
It started with I at the time back in the 80s, early 90s, everything we didn't have the internet. Well, it was very, very early young. There wasn't a lot of content on it. And so I would do a lot of research. I do a lot of reading. My job kept me involved in technology and environmental issues and governmental issues. And I can't remember exactly what magazine it was, but I was reading in that magazine. In the back of the magazine, there's a little tiny little article, probably 3, maybe 4 sentences long. And you've seen them. They're little blurbs that they
Yeah,
end the magazine with.
yeah,
And this one had 3 sentences that that just caught my attention and I couldn't put down. A program had escaped the Lawrence Livermore Laboratories at Sandia. If I knew anything about it, I should contact this professor at the labs or this FBI agent who's in charge of the investigation. That's all. That's all it said.
Oh.
It did, and I looked at that article several times and I thought, that has to be a typo.
Yeah.
Somebody at Associated Press is going to lose their job over this. They should have said the program was lost, or the program was stolen, or the program didn't work right. It malfunctioned. Come on, what do they even, a program escape? What does that even mean? I could not put it out of my head. I cut the article out. I taped it onto my computer monitor and I looked at it every single day for months, asking myself the question, was that a typo, or did they accidentally slip out some information that we weren't supposed to know? So I decided, being the nerd that I am, that I was going to try and figure it out. So I actually started researching architectural designs and different technologies and trying to back into, how could a program escape a government laboratory? What does that mean? Escape, that implies intelligence, that implies the ability to choose a new location without asking for permission. It implies the ability to erase the log trail behind it so they couldn't follow the log trail to know
Yeah.
where it went. I just spent several months trying to figure it out. And once I came up with what I thought was a feasible answer, I went to a friend of mine and who was a film producer. And I said, I've got this great idea for a film script. And long story short, we decided instead to make a webisode series out of it because
Okay.
it was easy. We wanted to even test this idea, whether people would respond to a program with a personality. And we did. It won multiple awards. It was super popular, including the director of flight operations of the NASA Space Center in Houston, who emailed me almost every week.
Yeah.
Got optioned by one of the film studios. And 2 weeks before the film studio had to make a decision on the option, 2 FBI agents showed up at my door. They were very unhappy that I had figured out their secret little program.
Ooh.
What they never expected was my snarky, sarcastic attitude. I was like, yes, I did it. I figured it out. This is so cool. I'm telling all my friends. That I was obnoxiously giddy. They gave me the "We Are Not Amused" speech. My wife came home and gave me the "Why are the 2 FBI agents in my dining room" speech. It was the best night ever. But they went to the studio and they killed the studio deal. So I had to go back and get a new job. I think I went to work with a startup at that point. But I told myself that once I retired and I had the time, that I was going to, I think there was in the back of my head, I knew that once I had the time and I would retire, I would research the subject more and I would bring that story back to life.
Yeah.
Because it really is an amazing story. And it shows not only the intellect and the creativity and the innovation of government laboratories, but I try to point out the hubris, the pride, the arrogance to think that they can do something that outlandish and not get caught or not have it come back to them. And the reason I put that in the swarm books in the last arc and the image is because we're doing the same thing in general with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
We're purposefully creating a technology that we know will become smarter than we are. We know that it has the capability to code itself, to replicate. Basically, an AI now has the capability to create another AI. And it's the only technology we've ever created that we've trained how to target and kill without a human being involved. Those are 3 very, very dangerous things that separate AI from every technology we've ever created.
Yeah.
But we're still doing it. And my books are trying to call out the classic human foolishness of building something so powerful.
Yeah. Wow. And one of the core things about 2 of your books, The Last Act and The Curse of Corte, both draw from. Am I pronouncing it well? It's The Curse of Corte, right?
Curse of Cortez, yes.
The Curse of Cortez. Okay. 'Cause I felt like I'm like, yeah.
That's
And
one of the most popular books. Yeah.
yeah, they both draw from deep history and real world mysteries, right? How do you choose which true events to fictionalize?
Oh, that's hard. I love them all. I love them all.
Ah,
The mysteries that I think intrigue me the most, the ones that just automatically get my mind buzzing on alternatives and trying to figure it out. There's a part of me that has a lethal amount of curiosity. um, with the last arc, I was exploring the idea, with the whole Curse of Court, with the whole Swarm last arc image series, there's an underlying theme of end time prophecy being fulfilled in real
Fulfilled,
time.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's for a lot of people, one of the prophecies that they envision is coming is about a third temple. Now, I have some issues from a biblical perspective, whether that's true or not, but I think it was fulfilled in the first century. But nonetheless, I was starting to research that topic. And in my mind, I wanted to know, I thought, well, the temple itself is really meaningless unless there's an ark. And I knew that there was an ark in Ethiopia. And so I started investigating that one first. And I discovered, to my surprise, that, and I had a whole storyline written about the ark that had written. But when I started researching it, I realized that in September of 2021, it was 750 men, women, and children were massacred trying to protect it.
Oh.
And it was stolen and sold in the black market. And I realized that nobody in the West was aware of that. None of my friends, none of my other Christian friends, nobody knew that had happened. That intrigued me to say, well, not only that it happened, but why would it happen? Who wanted it?
Yeah.
And what would happen with it now? The fact that we're in the end times and all of a sudden, and we're looking at whether or not a temple could even exist, and then all of a sudden one of the arcs comes into play, there's a story there. So I want to know who it was behind that and the story behind that. And so there's all question with the Curse of Cortez. It started when I discovered that after raiding the city of Panama, Henry Morgan brought back 35 tons of plunder, close to $1 billion of plunder, and 600 slaves. And then he cheated his men and disappeared with everything that was never seen again. But Morgan survived and went insane and burned his logbook. So the world would never know what happened to $1 billion of treasure and 600 souls. Again, it was the questions that drove me. Why would Morgan, a guy who was bloodthirsty and greedy and vicious and amoral, why would he give up $1 billion in treasure after he had already killed thousands of people to get that treasure? It wasn't about the morality. There was something else that triggered Morgan that made him go insane about that. And so it became an obsession for me. And it actually took me, the Curse of Cortez is unique among all my other books because I was trying to solve a real historical mystery. That took me almost 12 years to research, on and off. And because I really wanted to solve the mystery of what happened to Morgan's treasure and what happened to Morgan that he would go insane and burn his logbooks. And that was such a fantastic journey for me that I had to write about it. Sometimes about the economy, about governments, about new policies, mergers and acquisitions. And so I think in terms of all the parts that work together, right? It's not just Ukraine. It's Ukraine plus economy, plus politics, plus climate. There's all these things that are always working together. And so for me, I research until I have some themes that I feel are important enough that I want to say. Right? These are the themes I want to have. And then I start to search those themes. And then I'll get down and actually I have the main characters in the story. So each of them has their own sort of story arc that they have to own, right? Beginning, middle, and end. And each of them get to own one or more of the themes. And so the story of that theme basically starts to get filtered through that character. And then as the characters interact, the themes interact. And so I map it out. I didn't at first. When I first wrote Cortez, I didn't know what I was doing. I just wrote randomly, tried to write a story. It got way too cumbersome, way too complicated. I had to wind up redoing it multiple times. So when I started, and I took a class by Dan Brown. And so when I started to think about the next books, I wanted to make sure that I could say what I wanted to say clearly and succinctly. And so to do that, I started plotting. And so the plot will include all 6 characters, all 5 characters, all the themes, and I'll go chapter by chapter with which character, who are they interacting with, what are the themes, if there's any research points that I want to bring up in that chapter, I mark it out. And so I'll come up with a chapter by chapter outline before I start writing, and then I start writing. Now, once I finish the first draft, which might only take me a couple of months at most, I'll polish. And it's still not working. Maybe things aren't complete, or maybe it's not fixed yet, or I forgot this, it's not working yet. And typically I'll go through, like my last book, The Image, I went through 36 different versions before I
Oh,
finally said it was done.
wow, wow, 36 different versions. Thanks for
Yeah.
telling me that. Oh, so I hold that when I'm going through a project. So I'm like, oh, the first draft, we're just starting the job. The second, we're playing
Third
around.
draft is starting to stink less. Yeah.
Wow, wow, okay.
Well,
Um,
Stephen King, one of the most prolific writers on the planet, he says that first drafts always stink. Now, somebody as good as Stephen King can probably get to a really good draft in maybe 3 or 4 or 5 drafts.
yeah,
I'm not as good as Stephen King, and my plots are a lot more complicated, so I have to work at it a lot harder.
yeah, yeah. Oh, Um, yeah, so it makes things easy not to like, oh yeah, oh no, like, oh, this is just a starting point rather than, oh, this is the final project. Um, you, fiction, just as a final question, fiction has the power to influence how people think about real issues, right? Books, movies, and so many other versions of fiction. What conversations do you hope your books will inspire in the next decade?
I want my books to inspire a few different conversations. One is, should we be doing more to create boundaries and guardrails for the proliferation and use of artificial intelligence? Are we being wise in how fast and how much money we're pouring into this before we've decided whether or not it's safe and it's going to be for human benefit or to enslave us? And so that's one question. Ask the question about artificial intelligence before it becomes super intelligent and it's a huge problem. Now is the time for us to be asking those questions. The
Yeah,
second
well,
one, and go ahead.
no, I'm saying wow to what you said.
Yeah. The second one is almost is even more important. When we look at the scope of our history, when we look at where we're in my generation, since World War II, we've had the most astounding generation of all time. We've had the most astounding revolution in technology, communications, and banking, and human rights, and farming, space exploration, medical sciences. Absolutely incredible what we've been able to do. We have all of the talent, all of the resources, all of the even using artificial intelligence for good purposes. We have all of the things that we would need to solve every single one of the problems facing humanity that have always faced humanity: hunger, clean water, education, safety, a good career. All of these things we could solve, but we don't. And we don't solve those things because of the cancerous form of greed and hubris and pride and tribalism that has kept us at war for thousands of years. And so the books want to ask the question. Now, it just so happens that the world that we're living in right now has an astronomical correlation to biblical end time prophecy, as well as other traditions of prophecy from the Hopi and the Hindu and the Maya and others.
Yeah,
And it's correlations that I actually, in the book, the computer that escaped, the Sylvia, has decoded end time prophecy using algorithms that I developed back in the 90s and tested. Now, when I developed that algorithm, that program in the 90s, I was trying to test, can we confirm either yes or no whether we live in prophetic times, and can I do so with a mathematical level of assurance?
yeah.
That model produced an outcome of 1.4 trillion to 1, not billion with a B, not million with an M, trillion with a T, 1.4 trillion to 1,
Wow,
that we're living
wow,
in the last days. And so the
wow.
question that I'm trying to get people to say, search their own hearts, to search their own tradition of faith, to look at the world and see that we could solve all the problems that we face. What are the reasons why we don't? And is prophecy the conclusion I reached, and the one that I want people to think about, is that prophecy is not about how an angry deity will come to destroy humanity. It's a warning of how we would destroy ourselves.
Wow.
And I want
Wow.
people to think about that as we go forward with our elections and how we vote and how we plan our careers and how we plan all these things in our life to be better prepared for what seems to be coming at us in real time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Guy. If a listener is picking up your work for the first time, where should they start?
It's not a, it's, I'm trying not, I've tried to make it so that it's not a religious issue. I've tried to make it so it's an
Did
issue
you
of,
did you get the question? I said right? If a listener is picking up your work, your books for the first time, where should they start?
oh, where should they start? Oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
I would
yeah.
probably start with, if you want to go down the road of looking into the AI and the end time, I would start with Swarm. That's the best place to start. The books read
Okay.
easy. They're great. If you're just looking for a really, really fun adventure, go with Cursive Cortez.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing and talking about your research and writing process. Where can the audience connect with you and explore your books?
They can connect. That my website's an easy place, guymorrisbooks.com. There's links to buy, or you can buy it from my site. There's reviews, there's trailers, there's fact versus fiction pages. So there's a lot of content. It's a great place to start.
Yeah, once again, thank you so much, Kai. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you. I'll put the links mentioned in the description and the show notes so listeners can just click and go directly to the site.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.